I'd like to welcome everybody to our town hall meeting tonight. We have a town hall meeting once every quarter, 4 times a year. And this will be our fourth virtual town hall meeting. Unfortunately, hopefully we'll be back in person together soon. Tonight's topic is going to be gangs and drugs. We're going to have one panelist who's going to be giving a discussion. And at the end of his presentation, we'll be taking questions. Please use the Q&A tab. Don't use the chat to ask questions. That way we can keep up with all the questions as they come in. Again, use the Q&A tab if you do have any questions, and we'll answer those as we can after the presentation. Also, keep in mind that we can't answer questions about any cases that are open, they're currently pending in court, or from other jurisdictions. So we'll try and get to everything we can. So before we get to the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Gary Sparks.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the Major stated, we are glad that you all have checked in with us this evening to talk about the Georgia Street Gang and Terrorist Prevention Act, as well as drugs. Tonight we will have a short presentation by our lieutenant over our Special Operation Unit, and he will go over the law as it pertains to gangs. We have been very proactive as it relates to investigating gang environment or gang crimes, as well as drug crimes. So we've made several arrests over the past few years stemming from gang as well as drug crimes. So we really want to make sure that the citizens here in Douglasville and Douglas County are well aware that we are aware of gangs in our area, and we have sent our Special Operation Unit to several locations in order for them to get information and more training on gangs. Hey, Sam, I just went away. I don't know what happened. Oh, still alive? Okay, I'm sorry about that, everybody. My picture just went blank. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Winklepleck, because we want to have more, hear from you all, the questions that you may have, so we can get you some answers. So turn it over to Lieutenant Winklepleck.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Winklepleck. I'm over the Special Operations Unit here at the Police Department. Tonight, we're going to talk about gangs, and in particular, we're going to go over the gang law. I think it's important for the citizens of our community to know, number one, that there is a gang law here in the state of Georgia, and what that law is. So we're going to go ahead and get it started. I'm hoping you all can see this presentation, and this is not what I think the gang law is. What this is the actual gang law. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. In Georgia, the gang law is called the Georgia Street Gang and Terrorism Prevention Act. And the state legislature decided that there was a problem with gangs in the state of Georgia, and they wanted to provide law enforcement with laws to combat those gangs, and that's what this is. The Street Gang Terrorism Prevention Act, it gives the legal definition of what a criminal street gang is in the state of Georgia. It defines what criminal gang activity is, and it also shows the punishments for being involved in gang crimes. So under the legislative intent, which is under the Georgia Code 1615-2, the General Assembly finds and declares that it's the right of every person to be secure and protected from fear, intimidation, and physical harm caused by the activities of violent groups and individuals. It is not the intent of this chapter to interfere with the exercise of the constitutionally protected rights of freedom expression, and association. The General Assembly recognizes the constitutional right of, I'm sorry, I've got to move this box out of the way. I can't see the rest of it. Of every citizen to harbor and express beliefs on any lawful subject. And it goes on to say that as long as you're doing things lawfully, associating lawfully, there's no problems. Okay, sorry about that, folks. All right, let's try that again. The General Assembly recognizes the constitutional right of every citizen to harbor and express beliefs on any lawful subject whatsoever, to associate lawfully with others and share similar beliefs, to petition lawfully constituted authority for a redress of perceived grievances, and participate in the electoral process. So again, as long as these things are done lawfully, there's no problem. Moving on, the General Assembly, however, further finds that the state of Georgia is in a state of crisis, which has been caused by violent criminal street gangs whose members threaten, terrorize, and commit a multitude of crimes against the peaceful citizens of their neighborhoods. These activities, both individually and collectively, present a clear and present danger to the public order and safety and are not constitutionally protected. The General Assembly finds that there are criminal street gangs operating in Georgia and that the number of gang-related murders is increasing. It is the intent of the General Assembly in enacting this chapter to seek the eradication of criminal activity by criminal street gangs by focusing upon criminal gang activity and upon the organized nature of criminal street gangs, which together are the chief source of terror created by criminal street gangs. So the General Assembly has laid out that they recognize that there is a problem with criminal street gangs in the state of Georgia, and has given us these laws to help combat it. So what is criminal gang activity? Under Georgia Code 1615-3, criminal gang activity means the commission, attempted commission, conspiracy to commit, or solicitation, coercion, or intimidation of another person to commit any of the following offenses. Now, there's a lot of crimes that could be listed here. And for time's sake, what I put on here was just the crimes that we normally deal with when dealing with gangs. And that's acts of violence, robberies, burglaries, sex crimes, drug crimes, and then gang-related tagging and graffiti, which we haven't seen too much of that. I'm happy to say maybe 10 years ago or so, we had quite a bit of problem with graffiti, but we haven't seen too much of it lately. Graffiti has sort of switched over to social media postings instead of tagging walls, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later. So what is a criminal street gang? This is the legal definition of a criminal street gang. It means any organization, association, or group of 3 or more persons associated in fact, whether formal or informal, which engages in criminal gang activity. So you've got to have 3 or more people as part of this to warrant the gang charges. The existence of such organization, association, or group of individuals associated in fact may be established by evidence of. Now, evidence, these are the things that we as law enforcement who investigate these gangs, these are the things that we need to be searching for while we're doing that investigation. That the group shares a common name, that they use common identifying signs, symbols, perhaps tattoos, graffiti, and clothing and accessories. Other distinguishing characteristics, including but not limited to common activities, customs, and behaviors. So when gangs are representing themselves, they use all these different things, and these are the things that we use to help in the prosecution of the gang. So the gang members themselves actually provide all this for us. And then such terms shall not include 3 or more persons associated, in fact, that are basically not involved in criminal gang activity. So we take great care when we are considering charging the gang laws. They're very serious. They come with serious punishment and consequences, and we don't take them lightly. We just don't put them on anyone. We make sure that it's warranted before we apply the charge. So when a gang establishes itself by a number of people, 3 or more, they use the common identifiers to represent the gang, and they engage themselves in criminal gang activity, then they are subject to the gang laws. And these crimes only apply to gang members and their associates who participate in gang activity with the gang. Okay. And those charges are participation in criminal gang activity. The code says it shall be unlawful for any person employed by or associated with a criminal street gang to conduct or participate in criminal gang activity through the commission of certain crimes. So when we make a charge, when we make a gang case and we actually charge somebody under the gang law, all that are charged will get this code section A, because it covers the participation in that gang activity. Section B, it shall be unlawful for any person to commit any offense within code section 1615.3 with the intent to obtain or earn or maintain or increase his or her status or position in a criminal street gang. So when they conduct criminal gang activity and part of their motivation is to maintain their status within the gang or to increase their status, that's an additional crime, additional to that first one of participation. Most criminal gang activity committed by gang members allows them to obtain, earn, maintain, or increase their status and reputation within the gang. Failure to put in work for the gang can cause a decrease in their status, or can be grounds for them to be kicked out of the gang, and possibly even worse. Code section C, it shall be unlawful for any person to acquire or maintain directly or indirectly through criminal gang activity or proceeds derived therefrom any interest in or control of any real or personal property. So crimes such as drug dealing, where they're selling drugs, which is would be considered criminal gang activity. They're earning money doing so. Of course, armed robbery, burglary, et cetera, where they're taking property in furtherance of their gang, making a profit. It would be, if we can show that during the course of the investigation, then we would charge this section. Section D, it shall be unlawful for any person who occupies a position of organizer, supervisory position, or any other position of management or leadership with regard to a criminal street gang to engage in directly or indirectly or conspire to engage in criminal gang activity. So during the course of our investigation, if we determine that someone in that gang is the leader or organizer of those activities, we will charge them under code section B. And it says here, section D is charged for those identified as having a leadership role within the gang. This can also apply to someone who organizes or plans criminal acts the gang carries out. So there doesn't necessarily have to be a recognized single leader of the gang. Anybody who is found to have planned the criminal gang activity can catch this charge. Section E, it shall be unlawful for any person to cause, encourage, solicit, recruit, or coerce another to become a member or associate of a criminal street gang, to participate in criminal gang activity, or to conduct or participate in criminal gang activity. So this is obviously, this is for recruiting. if during the course of the investigation, we determined that some of this crime is done while recruiting somebody into the gang, then they would catch this charge. And F, if it shall be unlawful for any person to communicate directly or indirectly with another, any threat of injury or damage to the person or property of the other person, or of any associate or relative of the other person, with the intent to deter such a person from assisting a member or associate of a criminal street gang to withdraw from such criminal street gang. So somebody's wanting out of a gang, their family, let's say, is trying to talk them out. The gang hears about it. The gang then goes and threatens the family for trying to get this person to leave the gang, and this charge would fit. And then there are sections G, H, I, and J, and all of those are all threat-related crimes that can be charged under the Gang Act. So punishment, it's like I said, it's pretty severe. Any person who violates the sections A, B, or C, in addition to any other penalty imposed by law, can be punished by imprisonment for not less than 5 nor more than 15 years, or by a fine of not less than 10,000 nor more than 15,000, or both. Violating section D can be punished by imprisonment for an additional 10 years, which shall be served consecutively to any other sentence imposed by such person by law. And then those the threat crimes, any person who violates those shall be punished by imprisonment for not less than 3 nor more than 10 years. Now, these gang charges, they're on top of the Predicate Act. And what the Predicate Act is it is actually not, see if I make sure I word this correctly. The criminal gang activity has to occur. So a robbery has to occur, a burglary has to occur, a shooting, an act of violence has to occur for us to even bring these gang charges. And those crimes are called predicate acts. They're the first crime that then leads to the gang charges. So that's the law. We've been working gangs here actively in Douglasville since right around 2007. We've prosecuted quite a few. What I can tell you is that we're not overrun by gangs here in Douglasville, Douglas County, by any measure. I would say that most of our more serious gang issues occur from gangs that are operating outside of Douglasville. In other areas of the state, we've even dealt with gangs from other states where they come here and victimize folks. And we follow up and investigate those. We go to those other states for those to gather the information that we need. The main problem that we have here, in my opinion, with gangs is the mentality itself by the young people. A lot of the young people think that being a gang member is cool. They join for a variety of reasons. And when they call themselves a gang, of course, legally they're not a gang until they actually commit that criminal gang activity. So we got a lot of kids that are claiming to be part of a gang that aren't really a gang. They don't understand what that really means. But they put themselves in a position where they claim in this gang membership, they might find themselves confronted by an actual gang who's calling them out. And then what are they going to do? And then when they react with violence, when they try to prove themselves, that's when by law they become a criminal street gang, the law that I just went over. Chief, you want to interject something here?
Well, we here at Senator Douglasville, like Lieutenant had mentioned in his presentation on gangs, that we don't make these charges lightly because we know how detrimental they can be to individual committing these acts. But we follow the evidence and we make the charge based on evidence. We have charged not only um, the gang charge, but we have made charges against, I guess, some terrorist organizations which would fall up under the gang charges that we have made those charges before. Any crime that occurred in the city of Douglasville, we investigate to the fullest and try to bring the perpetrators to justice. But it's very important that the parents start parroting and making sure that they check their young people and making sure that they check their who the friends are. And, how are they dressing when they leave out? And watching any changes of their attitudes, because what comes along with this gang mentality is an attitude as well. So we're fighting the gang mentality. And one way that we fight the gang mentality here in Douglasville is that by 11 years ago, we started a youth against violence program aimed at fighting against the gang mentality to help our young people in this community to stay away from the gang mentality in order that they may become fruitful citizens and be a part of organizations that are doing something positive in the community, and that where the kids can find and see that they can become productive and do something positive with their lives. So that program been going on for 10 years, and we have even received awards for that program. So we're not only out arresting and investigating individuals for being involved in crime, the gang crime, but we also try to help them. That's the two-pronged approach that we take here in Douglasville with this gang problem. It's education and then severe investigation. So we've been doing this for about 11 years now. Our detectives have gone to an institution of where they have gained more knowledge into this gang problem throughout the nation. So we're making sure that our men are up to date on the gang ever-changing approaches. They may not be like Detective Lieutenant Winkelplex stated. They may not be tagging and putting graffiti out, but we're very adept at looking at Facebook and the other social medias that we know that they're the gang mentality where it carries our young people and destroy their lives. So we in the business of building lives, not destroying them. But if you're involved in this gang environment, this gang culture, we're gonna arrest you. It's just bottom line. We're not gonna have it. But in order to stop it, it's gonna take our parents. It's gonna take our parents to be parents and not put up with some of the things that I see that some of our parents are putting up with. When we arrest these young men and sometimes young women, parents oftentimes do not know anything about what they're involved with until it's time for them to be charged. And we probably have charged over hundreds of people involved in this gang crime, from people involved in the KKK to other organizations that cross the line. So we out to win this, and we are out to make sure that we eradicate it. That was the word used by the Georgia State legislature, we are out to work and do a good job of help eradicating the gang mentality and the gang crimes here in the city of Douglasville. So, Lieutenant, you're going to talk about drugs a little bit, and then we can go back to the gang thing. And but I would
Yeah,
say,
just real quick though, before we leave the gangs, you know, it's no secret that we in law enforcement, we utilize a powerful tool of social media in helping us to identify these gangs. We get a lot of gang evidence from that social media, and if we can get it as law enforcement, then the parents can get it if they look. A lot of this stuff we don't have to go through any legal channels to get to. A lot of this stuff is published publicly by by a lot of these gang members, and it's just, I find that when we bring charges, gang charges, especially against young people and their parents, come and talk to us about it, the claim is that they had no idea that their child, their kid was involved in this activity, and they could, the parents could learn of this activity just like we do. Just pull up the social media, and you'll see it. And if you do pull up social media and you feel that your kid might be involved in gangs, we, the police department, are here to help with that. Just because they're claiming gang membership on social media doesn't mean they're really legally a gang member. But it could be a sign that they're headed down that road. And you don't have to be afraid as parents to come and seek help from the police department in trying to deter these kids from that lifestyle. So I just want to make that clear. We're here to help. We'd rather help out than lock them up. And if we can catch them before they actually engage in that criminal gang activity, it'll definitely be for the betterment of them and their families and our community. So I just want to make sure the parents are aware of that.
I want to add before we go any further that Youth Against Violence program, we teach the young people the gang law amongst other laws, but we make sure that that the young men and women come through Youth Against Violence. Probably since we've been doing Youth Against Violence, I don't know, maybe 2,500 to 3,000 young people have came through our program, and this is one area that we make sure that they understand. Because if they walk out of our Youth Against Violence program, understanding the consequences of being involved in gangs and drugs, then when they're out with their friends, they can relay this information and let them know how important and how serious these charges are. So, and we ask the parents to come as well. So we put the information out there. You know, I know a lot of people may not have heard of our Youth Against Violence program, but the media, they don't want to come in and spread any light on what we're doing positive as it relates to Youth Against Violence, because oftentimes they want to see something negative. But I encourage them to come and see what we do on Saturday and the relationship that the police department is building with these young men and women. I would like to say before we go any further that our mayor, the Honorable Rochelle Robertson is on, and our city manager Marsha Hampton is also is on the program. So Major, I guess we can start answering a few questions. Wink, do you want to go over the drugs a little bit?
Yeah, yes, sir, Chief. We'll talk about drugs just a little bit. I just going to continue this PowerPoint just a little bit further. We get a lot of questions about, you know, the stuff drug related going on in the community, and like most communities in the country, you know, we have our share of problems with drugs, and I just want to cover a couple of things while we've got this platform. First of all, just real quick, we're going to talk about possession, types of possession, dealing with drugs. what makes a possession with the intent to distribute versus trafficking. We're also going to talk about some prescription drug crimes. So let's get right to it. There's two main types of possession that we deal with when we investigate drug crimes. And those two types are actual possession and constructive possession. And I'm hoping this will show an example of actual possession is that the person had the stuff on them, in their hand, in their pocket. It's on them, it's actually in their possession. Versus constructive possession, which a lot of our younger people who are riding around with in these cars, 3 or 4 deep, and somebody in the car, they have some weed on them, and the car should happen to get pulled over by police, and the police locate the weed, but nobody wants to claim it. Then all the occupants in the car can be charged under constructive possession, and that's when the drugs are, all the people in the car have access to that drug, but nobody's claiming it. So those are the two main types of possession that we deal with in our investigations. Let's see here. I think this kind of got mixed up. Anyway, we're going to, some of the drugs that we do deal with, heroin, which is a extremely addictive, nasty drug. You just look at it and you see how nasty it is. But just to pass on that, possessing any amount of heroin is a felony crime. Okay, any amount whatsoever is a felony crime. Possessing 4 grams or more of heroin will catch a trafficking offense, which is trafficking is a much more serious punishment than just straight possession. 4 grams of heroin for trafficking. Now, sugar packet is 1 gram. So if somebody's found to be in possession of 4 sugar packets worth of heroin, they can catch that trafficking charge. Methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is also a felony to possess any amount. Possessing 28 grams or more, or an ounce or more of methamphetamine is a trafficking charge as well. The picture there on the bottom right, that's a picture of a meth pipe, a pipe used to smoke methamphetamine, just to throw it out there to people recognize if, once again, parents got to be keen on this stuff. If they see something that looks like that in their kids' stuff in their room, whatever, there's a high likelihood that they're involved in at least smoking methamphetamine. Crack cocaine, it's actually not a great picture, but crack is also a felony to possess any amount of. And trafficking crack cocaine is also possessing 28 grams or more. And the picture on the right there, that's from a case that we made here not too long ago, where we were, the investigation was into the sale of drug-related objects. And that pipe there, that lighter, and that piece of Brillo, the copper wiring there, all 3 of those sold together in a package to be able to smoke crack cocaine. 28 grams or more of crack cocaine is trafficking. Ecstasy, possessing any amount of MDMA ecstasy is a felony crime. 28 grams or more is trafficking. All right. And one danger in dealing with ecstasy, especially pills like this, it actually looks like candy, and can be taken as looking like candy by children. And you take a handful of those ecstasy pills and it can be fatal. So it's important that people recognize that the different looks that ecstasy has in case they come across it. Marijuana comes in of course, the green leafy substance there. And then the picture on the left there is it was a trill treat. It was a baked good, a Rice Krispie cake that was baked with marijuana in it. The picture on the right, that's an example of, I thought I had a slide in here on possession with intent. Possession with intent is charged when somebody possesses a drug in an amount that is considered more than a personal use amount. So for example, in this picture here, that's about 4 ounces of marijuana, which can be considered more than a personal use amount. There's about 80 ecstasy tablets there, the multicolored tablets, and about an ounce of crack cocaine, all of which are more than a personal use amount. So in this case, the subject was charged with possessing those drugs with the intent to distribute because it was in excess of what's considered a personal use amount. Also, there's a scale that came along with that, which would indicate possibly weighing up drugs for sale. So marijuana continues to be an issue. It is still illegal in the state of Georgia, being decriminalized in some areas of the state. Here in Douglasville, possessing less than an ounce of marijuana is a misdemeanor crime. Doesn't necessarily warrant a trip to jail, but it will definitely at least get you in court for possessing less than an ounce of marijuana. If you possess more than an ounce of marijuana, that is a felony crime, which means there will be jail associated with that. And to reach the threshold of trafficking in marijuana, a subject must be in possession of at least 10 pounds of marijuana. This is something that's very popular. It's a prescription drug, a codeine syrup that is popular at parties where they take this, users take this syrup and they mix it with Sprite or some other beverage and sip on it at the party to get their high. It is a felony to possess that promethazine syrup without a prescription. But it's quite popular. Just to touch on a couple more things on prescription drugs. It is a felony crime to be in possession of a prescription drug that is not your prescription. So if somebody's got some painkillers, some hydrocodone or something like that, and they share it with someone for an ailment they might have, a headache or whatever, that is a felony crime. It's distributing a controlled substance. So you can't do it. Another thing with prescriptions is if you have a prescription, you have to carry that prescription around in its original container. If you carry it outside of its, you throw a couple in your purse or you put a couple in your pocket, you can be hit with a misdemeanor crime for doing that. So possessing prescription drugs, you have to carry them in their original container. So that's just a couple of the drug things that I wanted to go over, and that's that.
Okay, Major, I think we are ready for you we can answer a few questions, and we'll go back over some of the things that Lieutenant went over.
Okay, thanks, Chief. First of all, I'd like to just say we're up to about 30 participants in this town hall meeting, which is a little bit more than we usually have for our online and in-person town hall meetings. Sometimes our hot topics draw more people in, but I'd like to point out we do these every quarter, and you can go to our Facebook page and see, usually we give a couple weeks notice about the town hall meeting and also what the topic's going to be. So you can learn a lot more about your police department and what we do here by attending those meetings. So I encourage everybody to come try and see those, even though it may not be a hot topic at the moment. You can really learn a lot. So follow us on our Facebook page and you can get updated about that. We do have a couple questions. I'm going to answer a couple here first and then turn some of them over to Lieutenant Winklepleck and Chief. The first question I have is, will the presentation be available to view after tonight? We plan to put this video, a link to it, on our Facebook page in the next few days.
Major, can I say something there real quick? Also, anybody who would like for us to come to a homeowners association or really anywhere to your home and present this type of thing to the community, we're happy to do so. All you got to do is give us a call and call the chief, and he'll make arrangements. He'll make sure that we respond, and we can put this training on anywhere where it's desired.
Definitely. We do those a lot, and hard to get that information out. Some people don't know when we do it, and we try to as much as possible. Second question, do you send school police officers to training seminars, conferences, and symposiums? So this is the first year we don't have any of our officers for the city of Douglasville in the schools. The Douglas County school system started their own police force, and they do have officers in the schools, and I'm sure they're well trained, but this is the first year that we haven't had anybody in the schools. When we did have SROs in the schools, they went to conferences every year. All the SROs did, and got updated training on any new trends of activities taking places in schools. Lieutenant Winklepleck, we have a question. What recovery type resources are available when someone's arrested for drug charges? Can you talk just a little bit about the drug court and what's available there?
Yeah. So if an individual does get in some trouble for some drugs, there is a very successful drug court program right here in the county. Judge McLean heads that up, and it's been very effective in helping people. And I would imagine that even if somebody who has a problem hasn't gotten any trouble, can also reach out to the Douglas County Courthouse and seek help and maybe be steered in the right direction on how to get some treatment. But it's a very effective, very good program.
All right, Lieutenant, another question. What are the risk factors for gang membership? And I'm assuming they mean what could lead a kid to join a gang, as well as maybe what are the risk factors a parent should look for to see if their kid may be involved in gang activity?
Well, and there's a wide variety of reasons why kids join gangs. That the probably the number one is just to have a sense of belonging to a group. And again, that whole, this is cool kind of a thing oftentimes leads to trouble. There's a lot of influence, of course, from the media, the entertainment industry. I highly recommend that that parents ask their kids if they can get an honest answer, who their favorite music artists are. And then parents spend some time listening to some of that music, get into the lyrics and see what is influencing a lot of this behavior within the music. Other things that you can look for, if a kid's getting bullied, oftentimes they'll join a gang for a sense of protection from the bullying. If kids come home and they've got unexplained injuries, scrapes, bruises, black eyes, stuff like that, that can be an indicator of some gang participation. One of the things in an initiation that occurs is that for a new member or a recruit to join a gang, they oftentimes have to prove their toughness, their willingness to fight, and in turn they could come home with some injuries. So we'd be on the look for that. If one of the signs as well is if a young person all of a sudden starts wearing a dominant color all the time, blue, red, whatever, you might want to question them about that. What's the motivation, behind a particular color that all of a sudden they decide that they want to start wearing on a regular basis. But the main thing, again, is social media. Parents have got to get dig into that social media to see what their kids are doing. And a lot of times, I spoke on it before, parents will come in and we'll show them the evidence of their kids' gang participation in pictures of their kids with guns, drugs, and stuff like that. And the parents claim that they have no clue at all that their kid was involved in that. Well, again, the parents can find it just like we can. And if you need some help in that area to learn how to get on their social media and stuff like that, we'd be happy to share that with you.
All right, we have kind of a follow-up to that, Ken, from a neighborhood watch. Are there any signs you should pay attention to of a gang infiltrating a neighborhood? If you could, I guess, kind of talk a little bit how gangs have changed somewhat in tagging, and what is there you could look for in a neighborhood?
Well, typically what we used to see, we don't have here in Douglasville, we don't have a problem where gangs are taking over a street or a neighborhood, but they do hang out there at times. If you come across, and I'll give you an example, we worked a case here not too long ago, and it did occur at the mall. And prior to this group who was hanging out the mall, and they sort of in a way did sort of claim the mall as their turf, their territory. But what they were doing was they were taking pictures of each other, holding up their flag, their bandana. It was a particular color, and they were taking pictures. And later on, we were able to get video of them doing that from the mall. And we saw a lot of people walking by and watching what was going on. And we did not receive one call that this kind of activity was going on. They were throwing up hand signs, they were showing their colors. And then ultimately that turned into an altercation with a family that led to a more serious crime. So if you see stuff that most people have an idea about gangs, you know, the colors, the hand signs, it's all real stuff. If you observe that, you see kids hanging out on the street, doing that kind of stuff, give us a call so we can come out and document what's going on and try to prevent it from getting worse.
Okay. Chief, I'm gonna let you talk about this one for a minute. What steps are the department taking to let young people know it's never too late to get help? Sometimes they could think that their life is over and they will never be able to have a life. If you want to go a little more detail about your Youth Against Violence and how kids are referred there.
Yes, that's one reason why we started the Youth Against Violence program, to give the young people an outlet where they can come and receive information about being involved in crimes, not only gang crimes, but crimes, or just needing to know information about the consequences of violating the law, or even the consequences of disobeying at home. So we try to change their mindset and have different people to come in and speak to them, people that maybe when they were young had some scrapes, but they've changed their life and they're professional people now. So that's our way of helping, letting the young people know that, number one, we love them. We police officers, but we love our kids. We don't think our kids are bad. That's why we started this program, to encourage them, to help them become what they may have been purposed to be. So that's one thing that I wish more media, we try to put it out there, will come and see that the police department is about building a relationship and letting the young men and women know that we care. You know, oftentimes I've had young men and come to my office about 9 o'clock in the morning, waiting on me because they just want to talk. They can't talk to possibly to their parents, or they want to come talk to me or Winklefleck or somebody that's involved with the program, because they know we're going to listen and we're going to tell them the real deal. So that's why we started that program. to keep our young people away from drugs and away from the gang mentality. Because once they get into that gang mentality, and I'm telling you, they really can lose their life. Someone close to them is going to be hurt, a parent or someone, or they may be hurt. So that's how we combat that, and let the young people know that they can find some love. They can find some good instruction at the police department.
Okay. Next question. What are you doing to make the mall safer? And there's two main tools that we have when we have any type of problem somewhere. The first is officer presence. At the mall, we work with mall security, and we have officers there every Friday and Saturday evening for I think 5 hours each night, which is the times that the most likely the incidents are going to occur. Our second tool that we use is conducting thorough investigations when there are crimes at the mall, using witnesses and going back and finding out who was involved and making sure that they're charged with the appropriate charges. So we're always looking for ways to work with the mall and make it a safer environment, as safe as possible for any type of large retail establishment like that. There's always going to be issues. Our goal is to minimize those as much as possible.
Major, you have that question here. Has there been any increase in domestic terrorism in Douglasville area? As I stated earlier, we did arrest a group of men, and I call it domestic terrorism, a few years ago. And we charged them with the Gang Act. But once we put that gang charge on them, they got more time in prison because it's enhanced crime. But since that incident, we're investigating some things that's happened here in the city. But I tell you, we do not allow crimes to go uninvestigated. That's right. That's why we tell our citizens, just like tonight, you part of the police department. We need your eyes, because oftentimes a crime will come to us, someone call us, and if we're not right there to solve it, to see it, then we gotta go into the investigative mode. And that's what we do most. That's what we do great. So there are some things that we're investigating. We have one of our officer investigators assigned to the FBI that's involved in excuse me. He's not only a part of what we investigate here, but he's a part of what's being investigated throughout Georgia and the nation. So I just say to that person that asked that question, we do have some ongoing investigation, and we're going to get to it. A lot of time when we trying to do things in an undercover capacity, and then the information get out there, and it ruins our opportunity to catch some of these people. You rest assured that if we get a call for a case, no matter what it is, we're going to investigate it until we bring somebody to justice. Bottom line, that's what we do. And we do it well.
All right, Ken, I'm going to put kind of two questions into one here. How many gangs are in Douglasville? How dangerous are they? And then as a follow-up to that, how much gang violence have we seen in the past year compared to the previous year?
Well, as far as the number of gangs, I can't give you a number. What happens is when we investigate a group that we suspect may be involved in gang activity, we shut them down as soon as possible. We don't let them flourish. We don't let them. We don't just stand back. We stop the threat immediately. So I can't say there's 5, there's 10 gangs. We don't have it like that. But what we do have is that gang mentality. And a lot of these kids, they're walking that fine line where they've got the mentality, they just haven't done the behavior yet, the criminal activity yet. And that's all it takes. It only takes one violent incident to cause a lawful group to become a criminal street gang. And that's what we're working with. We're working with the mentality. Like I said, the most of the gang stuff that we work, they're gangs from other areas that come and victimize, people here in our community, and we go after them wherever they are. Some of the younger kids that are in school that develop that mentality, they're walking that fine line, and all it takes is a crime to make them a criminal street gang. So I can't give you a number of operating gangs, because it's not like that here in Douglasville, but we do have that mentality.
Yeah, and here's the deal, and the mentality is the most dangerous thing. That's why we started the Youth Against Violence program, to combat the mentality. Now, some of these young people may be getting the mentality from their older brothers, from family members. Some of these things, gangs may be hereditary, because some groups, it goes on in the family structure. So we get somebody moved here from certain area of the nation, they move here, and they still got that gang mentality that they had wherever they moved from, and bring it here. Then they jump and start trying to grow that, because they think this is a little town called Mayberry. But we're here to tell them we're not Mayberry. We on top of our game. And that's the reason why we have made several arrests. We don't want to arrest our way out of this thing. We want to educate our young people out of this thing. Now, but if people don't have a hard head, then they have to go. They got to go to be prosecuted. But we're not trying to do that. But we will. So that gang mentality is the fight. That gang mentality is the fight that the ministers, that the school teachers, that the family members, all of us got to be involved in the fight of the mindset of some of our young men and women. Listen to some of their music. Google, Lieutenant Winkelplex said earlier, listen to some of the lyrics of their favorite artists. Google the favorite artists. See what that kind of signs they throwing up. See, they throwing up pitchforks. Because that may be they in a blood set or a Gangster Disciple set. Google them, because they got it out, they're throwing it out there. That's how they sell records. We had T.I. to come here to talk to our Youth Against Violence once, years back. And that was one of the main things he was telling the kids when he walked in. They wanted him to sing every song that they wanted him to sing. It was a song dealing with selling drugs, gangs, or something of that nature. Well, he asked a question to the kids. Have you heard this song? And the songs he was mentioning were songs not related to gangs, the drugs, disrespecting women. None of the kids, no, I never heard that one, because the media is pushing this thing, and our kids are is growing into our community, and our parents are not paying attention and letting that stuff come in and destroy us. So, I better sit down. I'm getting warm. So
I think, a pretty common question to law enforcement, any agency, is, do we have gangs? And I think it's important to note that gangs don't have borders. Gangs don't stop at the city limits or the county line. Gangs have to make money. And if you're in any big metro area, which we are, Metro Atlanta, gangs are going to come out. One of the common ways that gangs can make money is organized retail theft or selling of narcotics and drugs. And they don't necessarily stay. If they're going to be stealing a bunch of, whether it's clothing or electronics from stores, they travel as far as they can to do that, to find different locations to commit those crimes, to make money, to continue their gang activity.
And that's a good point. We reckon the case now that from people coming through our city involved in gang involvement in Birmingham, Alabama. Well, they get stopped here in Douglasville. When they get stopped here in Douglasville, we do our research on them. We charge them with gangs. Now, guess what? Birmingham don't have a gang law. That's why they made, you see, look at Birmingham. So when they get here and we hit them with that gang charge, they were like, really? What is it? Hey, look here, this was Georgia. Georgia got a law for this. And then these same people go to Atlanta, commit a crime, and I'm just gonna leave it right there because this is what we have to face with law enforcement, not processing or not going about being serious about our job. Because if we charge them here in Douglasville, where they can be also charged in other jurisdictions, and they're not doing that, well, you're giving that gang, you're giving that mentality a pass. Or you don't have prosecutors that don't want to prosecute, they want to plea bargain. So we don't plea bargain. We can't plea bargain this thing. Because you don't, it's just saying, I'm gonna slap you on the hand. No. That's when your city, that's when your town get inundated with this mentality. So we as a community must make sure that our prosecuting attorneys prosecute these gang members. Because if you don't, they're gonna come and take your city away from you. They're not gonna do that in Douglasville, because long as I'm sitting here, they're not gonna be allowed. But we need the citizens to stand up and get behind us.
I want to address real quick just a couple questions that I had. Somebody asked me last week. I just want to make sure everybody knows. I was asked how come we don't release, we don't name the gangs in the media on our Facebook or whatever. And the simple reason is we don't want to give them notoriety. We say their name and the gang name, and that's going to help bolster their reputation, and we're not going to go there. That's why. Also, why don't we release names of the individual gang members? Most of the time, that's because they're juvenile, and we can't release juvenile names to the media.
And I say, Lieutenant mentioned juvenile. Usually the head of these gangs, that's who they're looking for. They're looking for these young kids, these juveniles, because they figure a juvenile can only get go to juvenile jail or go to YDC. But a juvenile can be arrested and get charged as an adult. They old school not telling these kids they getting the join these gangs, or they're not telling them that. Because we have some right now, we charge them as an adult. Because my thing is, if you're doing adult things, you can get charged as an adult. But again, let me tell you, we have the Youth Against Violence program where we try to warn our young men and women.
Ken, we have one other question. How and why do youth leave gangs? What factors would help a youth to leave a gang, and what would lead to that?
Well, why they leave the gang, there's a variety of reasons, of course. But to leave a gang, they simply, even though it's actually more complicated, they just need to walk away from it and start surrounding themselves with people that are not involved with the gang or that type of mentality. If there is pressure by way of threats the gang imposes on somebody trying to leave, law enforcement has your back. We got your back, and we will aid you in leaving that gang and do the best of our ability to keep them away from you. But you just got to leave it. It's as simple as that. We, in the Youth Against Violence program, we had an occasion where we had several gang members in the program. And the chief put a box in the middle of the room. And when at the end of our class, the chief asked the class to make a note of the things you want to leave behind. And all the students participated in that. Well, in that box, we found 3 or 4 of the gang flags. They wanted to leave it behind, and they put that in the box. We got your back on that. So if you need help, and again, there's a lot more to this, but you've got to walk away.
All right, Ken, if you could talk a little bit about just because a young person may not be in an official gang, are they any less dangerous? So maybe talk a little bit about hybrid gangs.
Well, yeah, officially in a gang, that doesn't really, gangs, when a group is legally a gang, it's because they've committed crime. Okay, because you cannot be legally a gang member unless there's crime involved. But not all the juvenile cases that we work involve gang members. They can be just, non-gang members can be just as dangerous. But the motivation to be involved in a gang has to do with committing crime. There's crime involved with it. So the gang members tend to be a little bit more criminal-minded, criminal acting than non-gang members, but non-gang members can be just as violent.
Yeah, I would say because a non-gang member, they may not have committed crimes, but they're hanging together. So when something occurs, then they all act together. It's like that animal pack type mentality. Everybody remember the late Bobby Tillman. Those people wasn't in a gang, but when it came down to people putting their hands or whatever on that young man when they should not have, there were just some young people out doing bad things. Now they're in prison for the rest of their life. So yes, because some of them, young men and young women, when one start, everybody gang in and be a part of it, and then go back talking about, yeah, I did this, yeah, I did that, but they can hurt somebody. You still got to be careful.
All right, we have just a couple more. Do you see the young people find gangs as their family? And I think Lieutenant Winklepleck touched on that. One of the reasons people join gangs is because they feel like they're missing something in their life, and it very well could be a family. They don't have any support structure at home, or so they look for it somewhere else, and they may find it in a gang. I think, Chief, the last question here for you. What's your opinion? How do we rate in crime compared to our neighbor cities? And what specific cooperation would you like to see from the community?
Well, I'd like to see the community to get involved with their community, have some type of community action group or neighborhood watch, so everybody can be on task of making sure everybody in their community is safe. And if you see something, say something. Not for you to go out to be vigilantes. That's why you pay us. But if you see something you don't think it's right, 9 times out of 10, it's probably not. So get on 911 and call us. 911 is the way you contact the police. Don't think like, oh, I'm not going to call 911. It just something looks suspicious. But that's how you call the police. That's how you contact us. As it relates to other areas in this Georgia and around us, I think we tops. Our crime rate is low. We're because we're educating you. So when we educate the public to keep an eye out for what's going on, it helps us in keeping our crime lower. So I would say our crime rate is it's just as good as any other city our size in the state.
All right.
Can I, if I could just say one more thing, just going to ask the community, the public, to please stop leaving your guns in your cars overnight at the mall, wherever. Just you got to quit doing that. Most of the cases that we work involving gangs and guns, the majority of the guns are stolen, and they're stolen out of vehicles. As part of the investigation that we carry on with these gangs, we track where these guns came from, and most of those guns are being stolen out of cars. So I just want to throw that out there.
And that goes back to the fact that gangs travel. They go looking for neighborhoods and other jurisdictions. They're not looking at what jurisdiction, and they're just driving to find neighborhoods. So it may not be a gang that originated or is here, but it could be from anywhere. It's pretty common all around Metro Atlanta, all around the country. Stealing guns from cars is a big problem. Chief, any last words?
Yes, we have the mayor and the city manager. If they would come on and say a few words, and before we close out. Madam Mayor, Madam City Manager. Yeah, that's the mayor.
Mayor, you're on mute.
Oh, I apologize. I was saying I have my daughter home from spring break from college, and so just out and about doing things. But I wanted to thank you all for what you do every quarter and how you educate the public, and for the stellar job that you do for the city of Douglasville, keeping us safe and really being one with the community. That Youth Against Violence is a program that shows that we just don't lock people up, that we care about them. We try to give you a second chance. And by educating our young people, it really is our future. So we have an excellent police department. Our chief is, I will put him against any chief in the entire country, the entire command staff, and all of the officers in the city of Douglasville. So thank you for what you do for us. This is really eye-opening, some of those images about certain drugs. You think you know what they look like, but seeing them really, helps to put you on alert. And we, as parents, we have to know and be aware ourselves of what our children are doing. So, but again, I thank you for having these quarterly meetings every time and keeping us involved. And I know if something happens in the city of Douglasville, if it's a crime of opportunity or anything, you are eventually, I don't care how long it takes, you're going to hunt them down and get them. So
Yes,
thank you for keeping us. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I appreciate you so much, Chief. And thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
to an entire staff and the
Yes,
team.
ma'am.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
And Chief, only thing I would add, of course, is just to thank you all for always doing a great job. I think the mayor has summed it up for us all. So thank you all again.
Okay, yes, ma'am. And I would like to say the mayor said something like, a lot of times you may not know what the drugs look like. Drugs hadn't changed from when some of the parents, back in your day, it just wrapped up a little different. So if you like to see what things look like, if you like to see, so get information, call us. We'll bring some out and show you what it look like. If you think your kids are involved in gangs, let us know on the front end. Then we could try to help you out to try to bring them across. Because some people, sometimes they get so inundated in this mindset, they might need therapy to come up out of it. But whatever the Douglasville Police Department can do, if you need to see different types of drugs, so you see how it's packaged, so you can go back and check your kid's room. Some kids, you may need to take the door off their room. It's your house. So you need to be the parents and not the friend. And make sure they don't bring that mess, that gang mentality to your house, because too often we hear about drive-by shootings. And it's because of something your kid went out and done. You in the house trying to cook a dinner, and somebody shoot your house or knock on your door and try to bum rush your kid because of something they're doing in the street. Put that in check. And whatever we can do to help, we will help you.
And I think Ken could probably speak to this, it's heartbreaking. He's gone out to houses and had to tell parents that their child was involved in some type of gang activity, and to hear them say, I had no idea, I didn't know. And then our gang investigators start pointing things to them and they seem shocked. They didn't pick up on it. And what could have happened if the parents had picked up on that before they got to that point? And, we would never have to come to your door. So it's really important for parents have to play the biggest part in this. A lot of times we have to come in on the backside, and it's easier for the parents to get involved. So I think that wraps it up. Appreciate everybody for joining us, and have a great night. Watch us on Facebook for all of our events. We have lots of events going on, including these town halls every quarter. Have a great night.
Good night. God bless.